This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec Tales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
What's going on, spectators? Gobble, 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 which I'm sure you all know is turkey for Happy Thanksgiving. Or maybe it's turkey for...
Oh, God, please don't put me in the oven. No, please, I have a wife, I have children, please don't eat me.
It's one of those two, right? I'm your incredibly grateful host, Jake, along with my equally thankful and amazingly bearded Jesus. What's going on, Jesus?
Man, I'm just thankful for a lot of things right now. You know, this is going to be considered the Thanksgiving episode right before Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful for my beard. Obviously, I can't go on without saying that. Secondly, I'm thankful for our listeners, you know, who are just, you know, a great lot of listeners and people that we've gotten a chance to meet in the community. And then I'm thankful for comic books, man. I have a lot of spare time this week, so I'll be, you know, enjoying a lot of comic books. So I'm thankful for that. What about you, Jake?
You know, I am also thankful for your beard. I have no idea where we would be on this show without the blessing of the beard. So, yeah, and also very, very much so thankful for all the listeners and the Scarce Army members out there. It is so much fun to get to know everybody. We're going to show on this show. We're going to detail on this show just some of the even most recent events and how our listeners have impacted the show. I said show a lot. Anyway, very thankful for all of you. For everybody who is new to the show, if this is your first time joining us for Spec Tales, thank you very much for giving us a listen. Spec Tales is a comic book podcast that has collectors and creators. What is your grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
As we mentioned, this is the Thanksgiving episode. In the last 3 years, we have not done one yet. The previous 2 years, I guess I could say we didn't. So we are doing a Thanksgiving episode this year. Jesus and I are going to, basically we're all on our own. We are here for a good old-fashioned listener-submitted Grail Tale episode. So we are going to go back to, what are we calling this? Kind of going back to the OG formula, just you and I. We are going to be going through, everything is basically listener-submitted themed, right? Is that kind of a small theme?
It's a small theme going on this Thanksgiving, and it's also one of our favorite type of episodes, right? Where we get a listener to submit their grail and their story, and we get to collect it and then share it with everybody here. So yeah, that's one of our favorite topics for sure.
Absolutely, it is, and I think there's nowhere else to go but up. So why don't we kick off with our first segment?
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickup segment, where we're going to talk about something we recently read or picked up. But again, this is the Thanksgiving episode, so we've got something special to kick this thing off with. Normally, Jesus and I battle back and forth, going over something we each picked up or recently read or something like that, and we compete for tater tots. And we're still going to compete for tater tots because I think we need a recount over what happened last week. However, we need to kick this thing off, like we said earlier, listener themed, by giving a quick shout out and a thank you to one of our most dedicated, best listeners. Also happens to be the listener that has given us the most gifts,
and also former guest, right?
Yes, and former guest. I always forget that, and we need to have him back on as well. This is Dan Braun. So Jesus and I each received a Thanksgiving care package in the mail, something that I never thought that I would receive, of course. But Dan sent each of us some books. Now, Jesus and I each received the same books, but I mean, I don't, Jesus, would you say that Holy Shit adequately describes how badass these books are that we received from Dan?
Yeah, man. They are just, I'm gonna talk about one first.
Yep.
Eerie Presents Hunter, the classic Warren Publishing Heroes Complete Adventures. This book is gorgeous, man. I know you guys can't see it, but it's so awesome. I'm just gonna read the back real quick. Hunter is the son of a mutant general and a human mother. Hunter is a half-breed warrior who fights for survival on a weird irradiated Earth. Cursed to remain apart from humanity, Hunter still protects the defenseless with the hope that mankind will someday rise from barbarism and rule again. A perfect synthesis of fantasy and science fiction storytelling, Eerie Presents Hunter features the artwork of Paul Neary, Alex Nino, and others, and collects the stories of all three incarnations of the Hunter character. With the new forward by Dark Horse Comics publisher Mike Richardson, this deluxe hardcover also includes all color Hunter covers and spot art pieces that ran in the original Eerie magazine run. I mean, it's just we've talked about Dark Horse a lot. They just do things right. Dan is doing things right here, obviously with these hardcovers. It's just awesome, man. And the interior too is like the design of the book is just phenomenal, man. I'm just really, thankful and excited for this. This is something that, like, if I knew more about stuff like this, I would buy them. I just don't have that knowledge base to say, man, I really want the Eerie Presents Hunter, and I should want it, and I would buy it, but I just don't have that knowledge base of what's come out or what's been out recently. I don't even know how old this is or when they came out.
Well, I don't actually see. I'm sure it's going to be, if we could dive into some of the finer print, there's going to be like a published date on it. But I want to say that it's probably fairly recent. And I think what we can say as well is we are doing our part, Jesus, by talking about it right here and recommending other people, because honestly, this is the quality. Well, so. Oh, man. So I'm seeing here, first edition, April 2012.
Yeah. And the forward is dated 2011. There you go, man. This is
first edition 11? From 2012. Oh, my God. So,
yeah, dude. This is...
I'm going to highly recommend people. Yeah. So this is just the first of two books we received. Eerie Presents Hunter. Now, if I am always been much more of a creepy reader, but what I know is Eerie definitely got a little bit more into the sort of serial storytelling, where there were like creepy. There weren't a lot of reoccurring characters, while in Eerie there were, and Hunter was a reoccurring character. So this is just a collection of all of the Hunter tales. Well worth reading. So I've started reading this, Dan. It's taken me. We just got these, so everybody out there who's judging me for having not read it all yet, just sit down, hold your horses, okay? I'm gonna read it all. I've started reading it. It is wonderful. So, Dan, thanks for that. But Dan he could have stopped there, right? Because those are incredible books. But he also decided to send us, Jesus. I'm gonna call this one out. This is the Illustrated History of Warren Magazines and Illustrators Special. So Illustrators being the title of the book. And this is a complete, flipping through it, it is effectively a history book on Warren Magazine, Warren Magazines and Warren Publishing. So eerie, creepy, Vampirella. This book is filled with knowledge that I am going to be just shoveling into my brain here pretty soon as well. Dan, thank you very much for sending this. You are ever so kind, and we are going to once again continue and have to try to volley back. Jesus and I are going to have to come up with something even cooler to send back to you, Dan.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, as long as it doesn't escalate too crazy, but for sure, like the coolness can continue to escalate because these are very cool. And real quick too, before I give my thanks, my hearty thanks, there's a really cool picture. And you guys know I'm into history stuff, especially history of comic books. I love to know how things happen, why they happen, how things change hands, or if there's still like stuff up in limbo of who owns what or what, like characters and stuff. So this thing is like right up my alley. But there's also a cool picture in here of our good friend Dan with James Warren. It says February 17, 2007. James Warren and Dan Braun sealed a deal that gave Creepy and Eerie a new lease of life, including a series of archive editions from the Dark Horse comics. And it's pretty dope. Look at that.
Hey, that's a pretty cool photo too. See?
Yeah.
You can learn cool. all sorts of stuff in here. Anyway, it's a cool history lesson on a series of comic book magazines that we already love to read about and read. So, why not learn more about it? So, for all of you out there that already thought that we knew a lot about Creepy and Eerie and Warren magazines, well, now we're going to know even more thanks to our good friend Dan. So we're going to continue to promote Eerie and Creepy, and that's not going to change in the near future. But in this case, thank you very much, Dan and Jesus. I know you are equally as grateful.
Yes, thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it very much, man. It's just cool. I'm not used to getting stuff like this. So thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of it. I showed my wife as soon as I got it. She was like, "Wow, that's awesome." So thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate you.
All right, all of the pleasantries out of the way. Jesus, we've got some tots to dispense. Now, the Dan Braun thing, Jesus and I both received the books from Dan, so those are not being calculated into the tater tots for this week's recent pickup competition, just in case anybody thinks that might factor in, because we both equally got it, so they just, they eliminate, each other. Now, Jesus, as always, you traditionally go first. I'm going to let you take the first stab at recent pickups this week.
All right, man. I got two books that I'm currently reading that I want to talk about, one more in depth than the other. But also, man, there was a recent interview you did, and people are saying about that interview that they are right. That stuff should be recounted. We should go back into the vault and recount those tots because they were mishandled and they were misgiven out by somebody that's on this recording right now. I don't know who it could be. It's not me. I just tell you that much.
I don't know. I know the interview that you're talking about, but I do not know for the life of me. I don't know what you mean.
I'm sure.
That interview also, we definitely got to shout out. I sat down on Absolute Game of Nerds and with Rohan and JP, and it was a ton of fun. It was a cool experience. It was a YouTube. You want to go find it on YouTube. Absolute Game of Nerds. It's episode 49, and it was just kind of a fun breakdown. We talked a lot about how you and I met, sort of, and the incarnation of Spec Tales. So certainly worth a look. Go over there, check it out. You can see my stupid face, which I know from a podcast standpoint you don't normally get to see. So there you go.
Yeah, and I owe those guys, man. I couldn't make it, so I apologize on here on our podcast. But I owe you guys, and I definitely, if you guys will have me, I'll definitely, be honored to be on your show as well.
Absolutely. They did say that it just gives them a reason to have you back on now. So
for sure. All right, so let me get into it, man. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this with you, my buddy, my pal. I'm talking about Gods, Gods, #2 from Marvel, written by Hickman. And I've talked about this on the podcast before. I forgot which episode it was, but it's introducing, two big time kind of characters or entities or organizations into the Marvel universe, the powers that be and the natural orders of things. And it's creating huge stakes because they have, huge power, and they have avatars that they give power to that can see certain things, and they decide what they need to do and what they don't need to do. And they're kind of against each other. Like the powers that be are fighting against all the order of things to an extent, right? Like more like FBI, CIA kind of deal. And then they battle the bigger threats, right? And there's a big threat that just came to pass, or it's in the mist. And I'm struggling with it because the stakes are so high, but where have these guys been in previous, storylines of Marvel? Because Secret Wars, Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, all that stuff. Where were these guys at? And so I think it's a potential issue with Marvel going forward of introducing new things. Like, how do they introduce new things without retconning certain things? And obviously it's comic books, right? So everybody comes back from the dead, and they have a lot of liberties. But from a reader standpoint, it's hard for me. I'm interested in it, right? The writing is great, the artwork is great. There's big hitters in here like Spider-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and there's new characters like Wynn, which is a really cool character. But it's like, I don't know, I'm struggling with it. I'm kind of struggling with it because, again, like, where were they at? And then also, why now? And I think, again, it's just because they're trying something new, and I understand it, right? Like, as a writer, they're trying new things, and Marvel needs new things, right, to continue to push the envelope and whatnot. So,
are you saying that? Which I'm not reading it, but as a follower, I understand what you're talking about, and in terms of storytelling, I think we all agree. We all want Marvel to branch out and try new things, bring new characters. I mean, that's why you keep reading. So, if we never got anything new, right, we wouldn't have gotten Wolverine, or we wouldn't have gotten new X-Men, or, Deadpool. I mean, you name all the new characters. Harley Quinn didn't come about until the late 90s, early like all of these new characters, right? Miles Morales. New can be good. So we want them to try new things, but how do we reconcile it with the history that we know? And it's an interesting question. Do you know if Hickman has addressed it at all?
I haven't gone back to see any of his interviews or anything. They just talk about, how big of a event, I guess, that's happening or is going to happen. And, there's some things coming down the line. Like we talked to Kieran Gillen, and his run is ending, I think, in February or March of next year. And there's going to be new stuff then. So I don't know if this Gods is building towards that. This event that they're talking about is building towards that. And this is going to be like a reset, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, it doesn't, because where were they at before? But whatever. And I agree with you, right? Certain things are cool and different if they're new, like Miles Morales. But those guys everybody you mentioned is pretty much an individual character that doesn't have
world changing,
universe changing. And so that's the problem, I guess. That's the problem, and that's the challenge for me. And it's also like, Marvel kind of pigeonholes himself, not through any fault of their own, but because of fans, into their universe, right? Like, they can't really do stuff out of their universe. And if they did, they have to do, Earth 616 or Earth 736 or whatever, right? But what if they just want to tell a different story, right? What if they just want to create new characters? They really can't. They can't, because Marvel has expectations attached to it.
Though there are unlimited universes. As far as I know, unlimited means unlimited.
Yeah, but in those unlimited universes, it's still limited to all these characters can travel into them. What if you don't want to do a story where Spider-Man can potentially come in, or Doctor Strange? You can't do that. They can't do something that's killing the children that has nothing to do with the other. You know what I'm saying?
Well, okay, you're right. Marvel is definitely stuck in a superhero world. I don't know, interconnected universe, multi-universe. But let's back. I want to get back to the original question that you're talking about, the original issue, and I don't disagree with it at all. In fact, we see this issue when it comes to Marvel movies often, right?
Yep. Where I think that's something that they're having with right now.
Yeah, they're having those problems with regards to, just the last two things. Loki, which I loved season 2. I was a huge fan of the show, am a huge fan. But Loki season 2, the ending of it is a massive, impactful event. And we didn't, they didn't even talk about any Avenger or any otherworldly, like, right? Like, how was it that Thor or Odin or any of the more powerful beings in the universe weren't involved, or Strange or somebody, Doctor Strange? And then within the Marvels, which I saw, I you know what? Like, I think it started with a bang. Loved the opening scene, the opening fight scene in the Marvels. Loved it. I'll go on. It's not even out on a limb. I think it was good. Right? Starts out great. And then I asked a ton of questions down the line, and it just kept kind of getting further and further away from what I liked. Kamala Khan, however, still the bright shining star of the whole movie. She was a pill the whole time. I just thought she was hilarious. So, but storytelling aside, right? That none of the characters, none of the actors, storytelling aside, you still, the question still became like, this sounds like these are massive events. Why aren't we seeing the other people get involved?
It's an issue in the comic books, right? Obviously, and then it's an issue in the MCU. So I think it's relevant, and I definitely want to talk about it. But like, you can pull it off with Spider-Man, right? Because all his movies, no big person is in it besides, I think in one of them it was Iron Man that came out because that's his mentor or whatever. But he was like a local level superhero. But when you have the Marvels, they're so powerful that you need powerful villains. Yeah. But if there's powerful villains that powered up, then you can't just rely on them too. You're supposed to have others besides them as well, because it's such a grave threat to whatever. And so then when we don't see them, that's when it's like, well, wait a second, why?
Well, and the first Captain Marvel was shrouded in, it was in the 90s, right? The movie took place in the 90s, so you didn't have all the other heroes available. Yeah. But Captain Marvel is overpowered, like, she's already overpowered. The original Captain Marvel is way OP, but in a good way, like in a thematic way that I think works. But they deal with that. That's a difficulty in writing. That's the same, like Superman is difficult because he is overpowered, right? Except for his one weakness, which is a green rock. I can't believe that. That's Superman. People coming.
He's susceptible to magic too. He's susceptible to magic. Come on.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, so I get the plight. I get the conundrum you have. I don't know that there is a solution to it. And as readers, should we just shut up and read? Right? Is that what we're supposed to do?
Well, that's what I'm doing, man. Again, Hickman is a big name, dude, and I liked his Manhattan Project. I like some other stuff that he's written. So I give these guys a lot of leeway. I mean, I'm probably gonna wait, 4 or 5 issues in before I make a decision on it. But I'm just reading it and enjoying it. It's just I'm struggling internally with it, but I am enjoying it. Like, that's why I'm still reading it. If it sucked or if it wasn't good, I'd be like, and I wouldn't even bring it up. I'd be just like, whatever. I just read it and it just wasted my time. But it's enough where I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And kind of discuss it and kind of figure it out. So I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying it enough to talk about it. So that's my first pickup. My second one is going to be a lot shorter, dude. I won't take up too much more time.
No, it's a big question to ask on the first one anyway. And we don't talk a lot of Marvel, so I thought it was worth the conversation.
Yeah. We don't talk a lot of Marvel. I still read it. Like I mentioned, I'm reading Hulk as well, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But this book that I'm talking about is Transformers #2 from Daniel Warren Johnson. Again, man, we heard a lot of rumors about this before it came out from people that had read it beforehand, that got into previews or what have you, that it was going to be, defining of the characters and stuff. And it's interesting because every time somebody says that, like with the Dark Knight and stuff, they have to go darker, right? And this is a little bit darker, right? It's a little bit darker. I posted on our Patreon that, and I think it's available for everybody to see, that, the Decepticons have a nickname for humans called squishies.
Yeah, for a good reason.
For a good reason. So I hadn't, it's obvious, right? Looking backwards, it's obvious, right? Like, we're so frail compared to a freaking gigantic robot and what they can do to us. And that's explored in this more than I've seen in the past. But it's really good. It's really different from a Transformer standpoint. I'm excited about it. I'm gonna continue to read it, and I want to see where the story goes. So I definitely recommend it if you're not reading it. Read Transformers, and then also Void Rivals, which is kind of intertwined in the Energon universe. I've been reading that as well. I'm really enjoying it. So
nice.
Read Transformers, guys.
Well, and the new G.I. Joe, actually, they teased it at the back of that issue. Or they teased Duke. I'm sorry. The new,
and he came out in it.
God, that's so cool. Like the crossover between Transformers and G.I. Joe. If you're a kid from the 80s, which I am slightly, right? Born in the 80s at least. And I grew up with Transformers and G.I. Joe. Like, holy shit. It's so much fun. It is better than I thought it could be, and that's surprising, right? Like, I thought it could be good. It's still better. And one thing I want to comment on, we're commenting more about this stuff, and I think if you're liking it, let us know. But original comic art, we keep talking about it, and I think that until our listeners tell us, we're not interested in that stuff, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in it, so I guess you have to hear about it. But just so everybody knows, Transformers issue 1 and issue 2, all of the pages are already sold out. If you go, it's being sold on Felix Comic Art. I know we've brought the site up a lot, but Felix Comic Art, basically the week after the release of a book, they're basically then putting the pages up for sale on Felix Comic Art. The other thing about Felix Comic, they don't tell you how much the pages sold for. They just tell you that they sold. And now, if you follow Felix Comic Art on social media, I think you can get in that. They give you like a 24-hour heads up, like, hey, these pages are going to go on for sale. They're going to go on sale tomorrow or something like that. The Transformers number 2, those pages sold today, and they sold out immediately, less than a day. Probably less than a couple of hours, to be honest. But if you are wanting to get in on this, what seems to be landmark Transformer series, the pages are being sold, and book 3, when that comes out the following Monday or Tuesday or something, it seems like those are going to be sold. So if that's of interest to you, get on it. I know it's of interest to me, although knowing Daniel Warren Johnson and how fast these are selling out, probably going to be a little too rich for my blood. Just to comment on that. So yeah, I think that's a great recent pickup. And honestly, I think that just all around, man, we covered a lot just on your segment, right? Just on your part. We got Marvel, we've got the indie comics with Transformers. We even talked about original comic art. Damn, dude. I'm going to give you a solid 4 out of 5 tater tots for this go around.
Okay. Sounds good. Stop the count. Stop the count.
All right. Now I've got one I want to talk about. This one, it was a recommendation by one of our listeners. And it was interesting because we were sent, or it was through Instagram, our good buddy Chris Jenks, who you can actually find if you want to find him on Instagram. He's actually a good follow for comic book lovers out there. It's just Chris Hanks, Chris Jenks is his name, Jenks. But his handle is @BrewSquid. And he went ahead and shared it with us, asked us if we had read it yet. And to which I responded and said, I honestly, I thought this was Fairy Tale Land, based on the cover that he sent, which I think it was a Scotty Young cover. So he had a variant for it. But this is Zawa and the Belly of the Beast. Now it's like a plus sign, Zawa plus the Belly of the Beast. So I don't know if that's like an and, or if it's just, I don't know how to read it correctly, but Zawa, if you look up Zawa, you'll find it. And the creator is Michael Dalinas, Dialynas. And this is indie comic published, Boom Studios, and it by Boombox. That must be the imprint is Boombox, which I'm not familiar with. But Boombox, they go together, right? Anyway, the artwork is awesome. I mean, this kind of gives me somewhat of like, I don't know, like creepy, like mystical vibes a little bit with the artwork. There are monsters. They're like, I don't know. I mean, the belly of the beast kind of has a thematic element to where it's got a little bit of action. It's got a little bit of like fantasy monsters going on, but then there's humor and there's drama, and it's interesting anyway. So the artwork is great. The lettering is really cool, and I know I don't call out lettering a whole lot, but this lettering really kind of took me back, because it really is a part of the story. Like the lettering is a part of the artwork in some cases. And I let's see if the lettering if it was all done by the same person.
Yeah, it's from the same guy.
So is he doing the lettering as well?
Yeah, it looks like he's doing everything.
Which is amazing, but also maybe that's why it seems so coherent and like built like to be a part of it, right? There's nom 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 like noises that look like their artwork that are noises in the panel. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I want to thank Chris for the recommendation. This is definitely one that I now have on my pull list. I'm going to keep reading it. I'm interested to see what happens next. And maybe I would say the only real, I don't know if I want to say complaint, because I'm not really upset about it, but I wanted more out of issue 1, right? This could have been thicker. This could have been, sometimes I do like how like Skybound on some of their first issues, like if it's issue number 1, they do the larger, the extra thick ones where you're getting like 60 pages. So it's like double issue. I love when they do that.
Deviant was 40.
Deviant was 40. See, I love when they do that though, because sometimes when it comes to like a first issue, just to really, create a good base for that story in your mind, you just need a few extra pages to build it. I really like how Image and Skybound and then quite a few other people will do those extra pages. This not quite that, but that's not really a complaint because they still gave you a really good book.
All right, so real quick, Michael D. Alinas, he wrote it on his bio on Instagram. He's at the Wooden King, co-creator of Eisner-nominated Wind and The Woods, and also he's done some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And Zawa and the Belly of the Beast is his first written by himself and drawn by himself.
Oh, really?
Book.
That's cool.
Yep. So he's from Greece, Athens, Greece, is what he has on there. So yeah, man. I mean, his artwork is dope. I'm looking at some of his Power Ranger stuff here. He has Jenica on there pretty predominantly, so I think he likes that character. Yep. I don't have this book. I've seen this book on the rack, and I've been drawn to it. I just haven't had a reason to buy it, but now I do. So I would definitely be picking that up.
Oh wow! And I am crazy that I'm just now seeing this, but it looks like Michael was on our friend the Oblivion Bar. He was there. Well, they just posted about it November 6th, so it was recent.
Yeah.
So we must have just missed him.
So Wind, I don't know if you know Wind, but Wind is with James Tynion.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which a lot of people, I've not read it, but I know it. So a lot of people have recommended it to me as well. So very cool. So you can definitely pick that up. You can go look at that. Because mine was a listener recommended book, I'm hard pressed to give myself anything less than 4 tater tots. So I think we're locked up in a tie here, Jesus. That's not. It's up for debate, I guess. I mean, do you think Chris's recommendation is worth less than 4 tater tots?
Well, I don't know because we stopped the count after you gave me my tots. So
I'm just saying. I mean,
no,
if you want to
no,
go out if you want to go out and say that you think that Chris Jenks, our loyal listener, if you think that his recommendation of a book is worth less than 4 tater tots, all the more power to you. I'll
well,
take that.
God's was recommended to me, so no, I'm just joking. But no,
you got 4.
No, I'm saying, I want to encourage more people to recommend stuff to us because I think that, we recommend stuff here all the time. I do it on Patreon all the time because I'm always constantly reading. But I'd love to hear some the opposite way, right? Like coming towards us of what you guys have been reading, if we're missing out on something right now. So yeah, man, definitely at the very least deserving of 4 tots.
Thank you very much. Looks like a solid tie. I am grateful for this Thanksgiving episode for us to lock up in a tie so that there's no hard feelings, right? We don't want any of that. So now we're square. And that also means that we get to roll into the next segment.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
That's right, the Grail Tale segment. And this one, again, extra special because it is a listener-submitted Grail Tale. And this one's going to be fun. This one we received through our Instagram. And if you're listening out there and you have a Grail Tale of your own, 100%, if I could do a listener-submitted Grail Tale every single week, I would. And I think that we would. I don't know about you. I think you probably would as well, Jesus. But in general, I way rather hear the cool stories that, like, this is what we started the show for, because we kept talking to one another about how, you go to your LCS, you go to a comic shop or something like that, and you start talking to a buddy, and they're like, oh man, this one time this happened. And that's why we started the show, because that's what you and I were doing. And so when we get listener submitted Grail Tales, it kind of feels like that, right? It feels like our friends telling us a cool story about how they got a book or something. And that's why I like the listener submitted Grail Tale. So I want to jump into that now. This, like I said, was submitted by our friend Eli Collins, who got to us on Instagram. Eli doesn't really post a lot on Instagram with regards to comic books and things like that, but it's pretty simple. Eli W. Collins is his handle, and he's a pretty cool guy. So you can certainly go give him a follow. I don't know if he would appreciate it or not, but whatever. Go ahead, give it a go. Sorry, Eli. Hopefully you don't mind.
She's about to get bombarded.
Yeah. He's gonna block us now. So, and Jesus, it's on Instagram. So like there's a few photos in there, and we got to do a better job remembering to actually share these photos when we get them from people as well. But here we go. So this is from Eli. These are his words, not mine. So if he says something cool and awesome, you can blame it on me. And if he doesn't, then that's on him. All right. Wanted to share a Grail Tale of my own. A little background. I got back into comics a few years ago and was mostly just reading comics on the DC and Marvel apps. We've all been there. It wasn't until the last 2 years or so I started really collecting floppies. Good word there. I grew up on Batman, the animated series, animated movies, and all things Batman, so that was an obvious place to start. I spent a while digging through dollar bins at my LCS and long boxes at the antique mall, piecing together runs of Legends of the Dark Knight and 1980s Batman. Pretty much anything I could find for $1 or $2. As this progressed, I started looking for older books, but it just seemed impossible to find anything Batman that was available near me and reasonably priced. And Jesus, we have talked about how hard it is to really get into Golden Age and even some Silver Age Batman or DC in general. There's just the big books are big. On to the tale, though. For free comic book day this year, after checking out my LCS, I decided to drive about an hour away to check out some comic book stores in another town. I walked in, started digging through the boxes. After scouring the modern boxes, I asked the owner if he had any Bronze or Silver Age DC, and he pulled a few boxes from behind the counter. Excitedly, I started flipping through the boxes, but after looking through, I wasn't able to find any Batman. Almost ready to admit defeat, I asked the owner if he had any other boxes he could look through for Batman. He said no, but I do have this that just came in. Turned around and from behind the counter pulled out a copy of Batman 55. The cover was just barely holding on at one staple and almost completely split, but it still looked great for a book from 1949. He hands it to me. I take a look at it, and I've got to have it. This being the first Golden Age book I'd had had the opportunity to buy, I spent some time trying to find comps for price and to make sure I knew what to look for to confirm it was complete. I asked if I could see it out of the bag. He gently took it out, handed it to me. I counted the pages, made sure nothing had been cut out, and we made a deal. I handed it back to him, and as he put it in the bag, the tape caught straight across the Joker's chin. Sigh of relief. There's a moment of silence there for everybody. Yeah. He gingerly pulled the tape off the book, but the damage had been done. Pieces of the book had been taken with it. We did end up making another deal, and I walked out of the shop with my first ever Golden Age book and a memorable experience getting it. I have since acquired books greater in value and several other Golden Age comics, but this comic will always hold a special place in my collection. Now, Jesus, I kind of shared with you those photos, and you can see the tape pull right across the man, without the tape pull, that cover, I understand he said it was kind of holding on barely, but I mean, for 1949, everything's there. It looks clean. It looks good. And without that tape pull, man, that's a crisp cover. You wish hadn't been tape pulled. But the memorable story of the tape pull, nonetheless, is awesome, right? Like the tape pull included. The tape pull really does make the memory, so to speak. But yeah, and it was him who put it back in the bag, right? Like that's the key. It was him, which is just another warning for everybody out there. We've done a PSA on it in the past, but just take the tape off. Just take the tape all the way off. You can get more tape to put it on the bag, but man, in Eli's case, damn.
Yeah, I mean, so quick story that kind of reminded me of this, and it has nothing to do with comic books, but I recently went to a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, and I bought one of their posters there that glows in the dark. And when you buy, you have to buy at the beginning of the show because they sell out by the end of it. So you're having to carry and lug this thing around, and it's unfolded, like it's not in a tube, like it's straight. And we were there, we were having fun, and unfortunately, when I was jumping around with my buddy, some tinted liquid got onto it, right? Like, because we're jumping around, right? And my wife was like so upset. She's like, "Oh my God, it was so expensive." And, and I said, no. Like, that's memorable. That's part of the memory of this show. I don't care if chili from a chili dog or from chili nachos comes onto it. Like, as long as it happened while it was at the show, while we were doing it. And this is kind of the same thing, right? Like, if he had gotten it with the tape pool, not knowing where that tape pool came from, even if it came 5 minutes before he walked into that LCS, it's not the same thing as when it happened during this whole
during the moment
of him trying to acquire of the moment. And I think it kind of captures the moment, and like you said, it's a part of his collection. He's never going to forget it. And then on top of that, this classic Joker, and it's funny because I was looking at it, and the name of the story, which is written by Bill Finger, right? Bill Finger, who created Batman, co-created Batman after the fact, right? Because it was half stolen from him, and basically created a lot of the villains in the rogue gallery that we know now. So Bill Finger wrote this issue, and it's called The Case of the 48 Jokers. And I was like, man, 48 Jokers, why not 50? Well, because the 49th state wasn't added until 1959, 10 years after this book came out. So during the time that this book came out, there was only 48 states. So that's another like really quirky piece of history that's tied into this book. And it's just such a dope cover, man. It's yellow with red and the Joker, the old school Joker on there with a lot of little Joker faces on there. It's just a really cool book to have, and it's just such a cool Grail tale as well, man. Like even in those instances where something negative happens to a book as you're getting it or right before you're getting it, if it's part of your collection, if you're not trying to flip it or trade it for something else, it just adds, at least in my view, sentimental value to that book and that Grail.
Well, and I can't help but think that this may be the only instance of proof that we have that there was a Joker in Nebraska at one point in time.
At some point in time.
At some point, there had to be 48 of them in order to get one to come here. But I'm sure it's been well documented somewhere that what restaurants he was eating at and the galas he was probably attending.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Was Nebraska homeboy alive by then? What's his name? The Oracle of Omaha?
Oh, Warren Buffett? He probably was. Yeah. Well, I mean, what year did this come out? 1948?
49.
49. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Warren Buffett was alive at that point. Actually, the Joker probably had a massive impact on him at that time.
Well, I was going to ask, have you ever seen the Joker and Warren Buffett in the same room at the same time?
Nobody has.
Okay.
Yeah. So
just putting that out there.
But Eli, thank you very much for sending us that, for sending your listener submitted Grail tale. I think it's cool, and Jesus, to pile on the comment that you had, I'm trying to think. I know there is like a material that like it absorbs whatever it comes in contact with, and then it like gets stronger. Isn't that something, right? Where like if it comes into a material that whatever it comes in contact with, it like absorbs that and like becomes stronger or something. It's like a metal or something like that. I don't know, but the story that I don't know. If there's a listener out there that knows what the hell I'm talking about, I feel like it's on the edge of my brain. I'm not 1,000% today, everybody. I'm trying to do my best, but there's something in the back of my brain that's like, yeah, there's like a material, there's like a story, or there's something that like, it whatever it touches, it gets stronger because of it. Either way, it's like unicorns. And anyway, like your Chili Peppers poster, absorbing whatever happens in that moment, like the tape pull, it only makes it stronger. And so in reality, you got a deal on that, Eli, because I'm sure because of the tape pull that you got a better deal on it. But in reality, he should have charged you more for it because you have the memory attached to it now.
Yeah.
Now it's worth more because of the tape pull, honestly. But I wouldn't pay more. But thank you so much for that. And do continue to send us your listener submitted Grail tales. Something that we are wanting to start collecting them and doing more of these episodes, as many as we can always get. We will always choose to do one of these before another episode.
Yeah, and share with the listeners what Eli's getting for sharing his Grail tale with us.
Well, Eli is going to get a Spec Tales
brand
poster.
New car.
No, a brand new car. No. So we are going to send him a poster, but not just any poster. When Jesus and I met up for the first time, when we were at the comic book convention in Dallas, we decided to sign some of these. I know it sounds ridiculous. Anybody would want our signature, but we literally did have a few people request that we sign them. So we printed some up and we made them just for the listeners who somehow decided that they wanted some of these limited signed posters. So I think, what did we sign? 20 of them?
Yeah, I think it was 20.
Something like that. So a few of them have already gone out. We've had a few people request them. But here's the thing. You do have to send us your listener submitted Grail Tale in order to get one of these. So Eli, because he submitted his listener submitted Grail Tale, is going to get one of these posters. So I will go ahead and get that in the mail to him. Actually, I may have already sent Eli one. I need to confirm. I may have already sent him one. So it sounds odd. I told you I'm not 100% in the brain right now. Still fighting a little bit of a cold, so I apologize. Eli, I'm gonna hook up with you. If I have not sent you a poster yet, then we will get that hooked up and sent to you. If you would like a Spec Tales poster, and this is the creepy homage cover poster, which is one of my favorites. I actually have one hanging on my wall. If I have not, or if you want one of these posters, let us know. Send us a Grail Tale, and we will get one out to you, free of charge outside of the Grail Tale, of course. So that is going to complete the Grail Tale segment of this episode. We now need to get into our final segment. Speculation. That's right, the speculation segment, where we're going to go over something that is potentially going to go up in value, something that you may want to look into. I don't know. If you want to put a little bit of money down into something that you might want to help the hobby pay for itself, right? Sell it, make a few bucks. This is where we're going to talk about those items. Jesus, save me from myself. What do you got?
All right. So before I give you my speculation, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In what years was Creepy and Eerie being published?
Originally?
Yep.
1963, I believe, was the first issue. So, Eerie, technically, I think Eerie #1 came first, but the Eerie #1 is so super hard to find.
Yep.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna share this one. This is something that I just came across on Instagram, and I was like, whoa, those are actually pretty dope, pretty cool. And then I started doing a little bit of research into them. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I really like these. They may be undervalued because they're a little bit later. It's from 1970 from Skywald is the publisher.
Okay.
I'm talking about Psycho. Have you seen these?
No. What are we looking at here?
Issue 3 of Psycho.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
You see the covers?
I do.
Painted covers.
But, very, very creepy-esque. Yeah, these are awesome. I love these covers.
Yeah, they're just really cool covers that harken back to 10 years prior. They change up a little bit in the 70s, 72, but I mean, look at this. This is like...
Yeah. I mean, this is... To me, this is screaming creepy and eerie, and it's got that style, that look, and yeah, oh, that's badass. These are sweet covers.
Yeah. I'm showing him number 11. So these books are, I mean, I feel like since we've been talking about it, not directly because of us, but just because of collectors as well, understanding what Creepy and Eerie are, and Frank Frazetta, and those awesome, artists and painted covers, those books are becoming more desirable and they're starting to go up in price. Psycho, I feel, is the continuation of that 10 years later. Awesome covers, awesome, nostalgic presence and painted covers as well. And then also on top of that, we've seen how much the original artwork for those pieces of Frank Frazetta art have gone for.
My God, yes.
I guarantee you these Psycho ones are way more affordable, and they will be more coveted because they have the same aesthetic to it, and they're just slightly different, not in a bad way. That Frankenstein cover looks dope, right? There's a serpent woman cover that I haven't seen before. Any type of serpent, monster on eerie or creepy, which is not bad. It's just different, So that's my speculation. If you could find, I think the guy was selling a whole run of them, like 1 through 25 or something, for like not even $200, which you're talking about $10 or less per issue in pretty good condition. So they're out there, magazine size, which Jake, I know you talked about having magazine short box or long box, so you can fill some of those up with the Psycho before they start getting hot.
Well, I still got to finish my creepy run. I'm not entirely finished with it yet, but I think that that's really cool. I like the artwork. I have not seen it before. I actually want to go and ask my LCS John, who's hugely, this was his bag as well. So, and he was coming up during, maybe not quite that long ago, but he was coming up more in the 80s, but he used to read, he said Eerie magazine was some of the first stuff that he was reading. So I'm going to go ask John about that and see what he has to say. But I think that's great. I want to look into it. Maybe he even has some. That's interesting. He always has some of the weirdest stuff that you never know is in there. So that's fun. I had an interesting suggestion for this one that I'm going to, I think, well, we talked about this already as far as original comic book art, but we, in the past, we've really only talked about one specific website, which was Felix Comic Art, as for where to find this stuff. But something has recently popped up that has sort of, I guess, given another option. And that is the Deviant. So we had Josh Hickson on the show. The Deviant dropped last week. Hopefully you all had a chance to go and get it, go and read it. Jesus and I both highly recommend it. The artwork is stunning, horrifying in so many ways, and it's worth a read. And it is heavier. It is longer than a normal first issue or single issue. Some of the splash pages are downright, gorgeously horrifying, I think is a good way to put it. And the artwork just recently went for sale. It is available modern mythology comic art. So modern mythology comic art. It's basically like Felix Comic Art. It's just another dealer that is who represents certain artists, and this is where they sell their pages. And honestly, the pages, there are some there, it is issue number 1 of a comic book series that completely sold out. Remember, this is so like the Jesus, didn't you say that isn't that what you were the one telling me earlier, that the series sold out, the first book number 1?
Yeah, so I've gone to a few LCSs that I normally go to. I've gone to 3 of them, and they have been sold out of issue number 1. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the LCSs told me that they're going to a second printing. So for sure, there's at least a second printing.
Gotcha. So, and it is written by James Tynion. So I do think that adds some, I don't know. Does it add some longevity to this art?
I think it does. Yeah.
I don't know. There are still splash pages available. In my opinion, the best splash page of them all. It's a double splash. It's a double splash page, and it's horrifying, but it's also quite expensive because it is 2 11 by 17 pencils and ink on Bristol board. Like you're getting the real artwork done by the artist, and I think that's badass. I'm really getting into this stuff, but because we've constantly talked about Felix Comic Art, I wanted to also show, find your favorite artists and where they're represented. Modern mythology comic art has a lot of great artists. Tyler Boss is on here. I'm a big fan. Yeah, Joshua Hickson, a lot of good stuff. He has other stuff on here as well. I believe they were doing a sale, and some of the art was from the plot, which we've recommended multiple times. So that, yeah, check it out and see what's going up. And if it's something you are mildly interested in, you can start flirting on, with pages from books, recent books. And as Nick Pitara told us last episode, it is better to get in on these books now, because let's say the Deviant, does a run of whatever 12 or 6 or whatever books or even longer, right? What if this is the next Something is Killing the Children or whatever it might be? In a year, you're not going to get these pages, especially from issue number 1. You're not going to get them for these prices or at all, because they're just going to be bought and saved. So I'm going to, I think I'm talking a lot about it. And if the listeners out there, if you guys hate talking about original comic art, tell me to get on a different horse. But, let me know otherwise.
Yeah, man, just if I could real quick. On that Deviant. So you said that that's the best page, was that splash page. To me, the one that's still available the last time I checked it, which was about an hour ago. And just so you know, there's been an internal fight here at my household about buying these pages or not, because I want to, but I'm also waiting on Nick's pages to come up for the Executioners at some point for Axe Wielder John. And they're like, that's going to be your Christmas present. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. But the one that I would probably buy is, and I think it might be a splash page as well, but it's the first time we see the killer, and it's still available. And so
it's still available.
Yeah, inside, because he comes on the cover, obviously, right? And that cover sold right away. Yeah. But in the story,
the first cover, but yeah, there's a couple other covers available.
Yeah. But in the story where he comes out, where they're in the snow and they're fumbling and then they fall and then the light shines up towards him, and then the next page you see him.
Remember that page? That's the one I'm talking about. That's the double splash page.
That's
it's page 22 and 23. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
Where the light's looking up at him.
Is it 2 pages?
Yeah. So if you read it, it says the double page splashes come in 2 pieces, 2 11 by 17 boards.
I guess, well, I mean, I'm glad you said that one, because that's the one that I would get, but I just didn't picture it as 2 pages since it was like a vertical splash page. Let me make sure we're talking about the same one. Scrolling here.
I believe we are, but that's by far my favorite, but that, I mean,
but at the same
price-wise,
time,
it's
so the price that we're talking about is $3,250 for that page, right? But
yes, and that is way. I mean, you can get there are pages, and I don't mean to say that these are cheap, but you can get pages for, I think some of them are like 275. There's 300, and I think it depends on how many panels there are per page.
But but what I was getting to, it's also what part of the story it is too. But what I was getting at with that page is the opportunity to own the bad guy the first time the bad guy comes out in a comic book. That's what's looking like a pretty well received issue, right? Like that's like, I mean, who else could we put it to? Because Something That's Killing the Children is Monsters.
Monsters, not really an individual like baddie, right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to say like, okay, like in Transformers, the first time, Megatron comes out. The first time they come out in the actual story, you have the ability to buy that right now on the ground floor, basically. And even, obviously it's really expensive, but at the same time, like we mentioned, in years' time, if this thing, becomes even more just because of time itself, like people look back fondly on it. Oh, remember when Deviant came out, or maybe it gets optioned, who knows? You're going to have that, you're going to have that original art piece of when, Joshua Hickson drew it, and it's going to be the original artwork. So it's an opportunity for sure, man. If I wasn't waiting for other pieces of art, I would probably try to figure out something with this one somehow.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. There's, and there are some pages, like, honestly, there's one, huge splash page, which is like absolutely disgusting, which is page 14, which shows just a bloody body in front of a Christmas tree. And it's just, I love the artwork, but I don't think I can hang that on my wall. I mean, that's pretty morbid. But not to say that I couldn't. And there's a lot of good stuff on here. So I really wanted to bring that up. That is my speculation. I am still riding that train, but I wanted to highlight our friend Josh's artwork, which is currently for sale, by the way. And also just there are other places to go find. I know that it's been hard for me even to find all of these places to buy the original comic art. Like once you find one place, but not all of the artists you want are at that place. So this is another option and certainly worth looking into if that's the kind of thing you're into. And I am starting to get on that train. I may have already boarded. Jesus, I don't know. I may have left the station. I don't have any in hand yet.
Yet.
So we'll see.
Is a proverbial word right there. Yet.
Exactly. But that's gonna bring us to an end of this episode, Jesus. We want to, at the end of this, we want to very, very, very much say thank you to all of you listeners. We genuinely appreciate you listening in. And sharing your stories with us and sharing your recommendations with us and just being a part of the community. We enjoy being a part of the comic book community and it's been a lot of fun. We're going to keep doing this, but we wanted to take this opportunity of Thanksgiving to say thank you very much for listening to the show.
Yeah, same. Jake said it very well. Thank you guys.
Ditto. We'll be back next week with another glorious episode of Spec Tales. Until then, happy Thanksgiving. Have a good week.